Hello and welcome back. This is Penny Sansevieri and Amy Cornell with episode 3 of our brand new podcast. Amy, welcome back.
Thank you so much.
So we are going to focus. So this series of the first series of shows that we're doing is focused on getting you from your very first reader to your 10,000th reader. And we talked a lot about a lot of different things in the last show around how to create more of a direct funnel from the reader to you and to your website and to get in touch with you. So one of the things that we wanted to talk about today on the show was why personal efforts, why that personal touch makes a huge difference. And Amy was involved, and she reminded me of this actually when we were debating what to talk about on the third show, that when I released How to Sell Books by the Truckload on Amazon, I spend a lot of time doing personal touches on my personal Facebook page. So I don't use it as really a personal page. Like I don't share what I had for dinner or, whatever. I really keep it's very sort of professional. And we talked about some tracks on the last show in terms of understanding how to manage your social media. And the book right out of the gate did really, really, really well in what is considered in the industry to be, book marketing is a very unsexy topic. I mean, let's just be frank. Let's just be frank about it. This is not, a romance novel or a, true crime podcast or, you know what I mean? It's something that's, people know that they need to do, but it's not necessarily something that generally right out of the gate does really well. And Amy, you and I talked about, there was a lot of personal connection between me and the readers that was both intentional and unintentional. It's just kind of how I am with the folks who read my books.
Yes, the people that really stepped up and immediately responded and took action when that book was out and we ran our promo. It was amazing how many people sent you with a note saying, "Thanks so much, Penny. I really appreciate this. I've been waiting for this book." And that proves that that personal connection they feel they have with you matters. So I think it made a huge, huge difference in the responsiveness when you released that book. Those people that felt they had some way were the ones that said, "I'm going to go buy it right now. I'm going to take advantage of this. And I'm going to send Penny a note to let her know that I appreciate what she's done."
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's brand loyalty right there.
Well, and that's where, right, exactly. And that's where I think that a lot of, so when an author says to me, for example, if I'm doing a consultation with them and they say, "I don't really know what I'm doing wrong with my campaign. I'm running all these Facebook ads, I'm doing all of these ads, and nothing's really happening." And in a separate conversation, I want to have a conversation about the whole funnel from ads to your Amazon book page. But ads are fine. There's nothing wrong with running ads as long as you're smart about it. But at the end of the day, we are so overwhelmed. I don't have the statistic handy in terms of how many ads that we see a day. I want to say, and Amy, you may not know either, I want to say it's something like we're 1,000 ads or something every day.
Oh, and I'm sure it scales immeasurably the more you're on social media.
Yeah, and it scales around, the holidays as more, Black Friday sales it seems like they started those in July this year. So there's nothing wrong with ads, but those, whatever kinds of personal touches that you can create with your readers, this is when I teach classes on superfans, right? On how to turn readers into superfans. It's all that personal connection where they feel like they have a connection to you and there's an ownership in there. There's an ownership in that connection that the reader has. Goodreads did a study a number of years ago and found that the number one thing that readers want at the end of the book is to connect with the author. So that's really where you want to share a little bit of yourself. You don't have to invite them over for no, like we're not asking you to open your doors to your fans. But Amy, you and I talked, and I know you did some research on this, and we're going to have, there's a lot of links in this call and in this podcast in particular. We're going to put all of those in the show notes. But Amy, you had in particular listed some efforts that you thought were super creative. Can you describe them?
Because
format.
Sure. I know, right? I know these will be in the notes. I always do that when I listen to podcasts too. It's like, I want to see all the pictures and all the things. And so we make sure that happens. The one thing that I definitely look at when I think about like the amount of effort and authors putting into getting personal and making readers and fans feel involved in what they're doing and in their success is kind of like, how many different ways has the author found to show up in that person's life outside of the book? So a lot of it is going that extra effort and thinking outside of the book. What can you do outside of your book that keeps you connected to them? Because the book is just one thing. I found one author that did these fabulous, she created a bunch of beautiful quotes and memes and e-cards that you could use and send to friends. And it included her branding. So that's that extra connection that's Yeah, it was very smart. So you could easily download and share all these fabulous images that she did, but her branding was on it, but they were really amazing. And it's like, well, now I want to share these because she already did all the work.
Yeah.
And when I start sharing them, look at that. How many more people are now seeing her brand and they're going like, who is this person that has all these great images? It was brilliant. I also love it when authors connect themselves to a cause, something that means something to them, whether it's a nonprofit, it could be animals, it could be children, it could be some sort of health related. But I think that's very personal to a lot of people. And especially if you choose something that your reader base can connect with, I think they like being a part of something bigger. That's really important to a lot of people now. That's huge in making that connection between your business and a higher purpose. So I think that's really smart for authors to do. And I think we're going to see a lot of that, more of that going forward. Let's see. Oh my gosh. There's just so many. Oh, there was a thriller author I found that, and this is so smart, and I love thrillers. So this really got me. And I'm like, I'm so interested in this. She's actually gone out of her way to visit police stations and take classes on forensics and things like that. And she shared all this fabulous stuff that she's done as part of her research to being a better thriller author. And I was just in love with that. I was like, these are my people right here.
That's a fabulous idea.
Isn't that cool? And so it was something that she did. And it was so smart of her to think about the next steps of that and bringing her readers and her fans into that level of what she does behind the scenes versus just doing it and thinking like, well, I'm going to I use it for my book and that's it. It doesn't have to stop there. Think bigger and think how you can share that with people. And then, there's so many, but one more that I think is really great because I feel like a lot of our ideas lean more toward fiction authors. But quizzes, I think quizzes are really great for nonfiction topics. Doing a quiz that shows that you have an invested interest in the next steps with the people that have already bought your book. Those kind of personal touches,
right,
I think are really smart as well. Anything that shows that you're thinking next level and not just about your book and book sales, but about their well-being and your continued relationship with them really makes you stand out.
No, I think that's really smart. And now if I'm listening to this as an author, and I'm just playing devil's advocate here. Sure. So if I'm creating e-cards and I'm creating all of this extra sort of scrapbooky kind of stuff, how do you feel that that's helping to sell books, and or what's the long-term benefit of that, of these kinds of things?
Oh, yes, exactly. And so this is where it comes down to, and I'm Penny the other day when we did one of these, but it's not about, getting one reader, it's about you want that person to be a return reader, a return buyer. And so these are the kind of efforts that bring people back again, because realistically, if people are already seeing these kind of special personal touches that you've done, they've probably already bought your one book. You've done that. Check that one off the list. What you're trying to do here is make sure they come back and buy book 2 and book 3. You know what I mean? So a lot of times, what we're going to be talking about here is not necessarily always about selling that very first book, but it's about the long-term goal, of having a successful career as an author with multiple titles, not just necessarily checking off those boxes for just book 1.
Right.
That's how I look at it.
Right. Exactly. And, I think that the other piece of this too is that if you're actually there's 2 elements to this, right? Is not only are you, saying, okay, great, you bought the first book, we want to keep bringing you back. We want to keep you in the quote unquote funnel to buy the second and third and fourth and so on. But you also want to turn them into these personal touches, turn readers into advocates. They turn them into super fans. And the second piece of this is that people, readers, especially consumers in general, they love the behind the curtain stuff, right? So this is why factory tours of chocolate factories and those kinds of behind the scenes things. I remember a book years ago, and I highly see now I'm being a super fan about this book. I highly recommend this book. It was fall on the floor funny. It was called Little Pink Slips, and it was a fictionalized account about when Rosie O'Donnell bought, I want to say, it was not Women's Day. It's a magazine that's no longer around because she kind of ran it into the ground. But it was, this book was hilarious. It was so funny. And part of the appeal of the book was not just, obviously it was well written, so that goes without saying. But you knew that it was a behind the scenes kind of thing. And what happened when this book came out is a lot of other books with sort of behind the scenes stories came out because publishers said, whoa, now we're on to kind of a thing. But that's not a secret. People love to know how stuff is made, how stuff works. And I think that the woman, the gal who does all the, she does all the research and she's the thriller author and shares this.
Yes.
What you're doing is you're bringing people into your world, right?
Yes, that's CJ Lyons, actually. And yeah, exactly what you're saying. What she did stuck out to me. I actually haven't read her books yet, but now I want to because I'm she's in this. She went to a forensics thing. She is 100% committed to genre in what she does. And I haven't even read her book, and I'm fully convinced it's going to be amazing because she's put in this much effort. I am already on board.
Right, exactly. So I think that's really, and that's where, 95% of books are sold word of mouth. So as you're getting, now you're talking about this, and I think, I read thrillers are not necessarily my number one genre, but now you've gotten me excited about this just talking about it, because if she's shadowing forensic scientists and whatnot, then I'm thinking her books are probably pretty accurate. And that's the thing that also helps to build reader credibility is when your books are written and they're accurate. If you've written a sci-fi or a fantasy, we know that you have built some imaginary world and there's a lot of stuff, going on. The rocks don't really exist in Outlander. I was very disappointed in that, by the way, that those stones. All right. The town exists and the stones don't exist. And I felt super cheated. But we know that even though, but what you're doing is you're creating this world for your reader. And for nonfiction folks, Gretchen Rubin, you give the example of Gretchen Rubin, and I love her podcast. And she has that great quiz, because you and I both took her quiz, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And she has this great quiz, and it keeps people involved in her message. It allows you to get more of those touches going on. Talk to me. So tell me a little bit about the link that you sent. And again, we'll have all of this stuff in the show notes. What's the live book club, Amy? What is that?
Isn't that a cool concept?
So cool.
It's like, I thought about that, and you've used the example. There was an author that you spoke to, I believe it was an event Penny, where she said that's basically what launched her social media persona, was her recommending books, because that's all she could think of to talk about, right? Wasn't that it?
Yes, exactly.
So that was kind of so when I saw this, I kind of thought of that. It's like, you're an author that kind of, and if we've talked about being committed to your genre and how that puts you at the next level. Like, you have the very much potential to be a thought about what's going on in your genre. Mm-hmm. And so there's an author that does a live book club, and she does it for her books specifically. But so she shows up, she does a live event, she promotes the heck out of it. She's got great images that show dates, times, all this great stuff. And then she basically shows up and chats with her fans about her books. And I was just like, why is this so simple yet brilliant? Like, why? I was like, I want to be there. I even read the book, and I was like, this is such a cool concept. And I would love to sit there and chat with the author about her book. This is so smart. And obviously it's something that any author should be able to do, in their. So what a great way to get involved with fans, do videos, start doing live events in a way that's very easy. In theory, it should be very easy for you, and a topic that you can just talk about for days,
Right.
I think it's a great gateway into doing events, if you haven't done live online with your fans or on social, this is such a great gateway option. Like, start a book club, just even do one. You can change up the name a little bit, so you're not committed to doing a dozen of them and meeting every month necessarily, but give it a shot. Try one and see who shows up and how it goes.
Yeah. Well, but I think that what you've and what we've been talking about and the examples that you've shared are really just about, don't overcomplicate this. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, okay, well, all this is great, but I don't really have the time to follow forensic researchers or, go, do a ride along or whatever, that's fine. But find something that is unique to what you're writing about, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, and create additional content or create additional ways for people to engage with you based on that topic, whether it's a quiz that, they can take and share. People love quizzes, by the way. They really, really love quizzes. Whether it's, and doing some video, doing some Facebook video or Instagram in the case of the author with the live book club, which again, I think is just such a great idea. Because it's those personal things. It's kind of like, I travel a lot to writers' conferences, and you really notice the difference when you go from Marriott to Marriott to Marriott or Hilton, whatever. You really notice the difference when one particular Hilton or Marriott or, brand name hotel does something different, or they do something that is a little personal touch where that you're more than a number. So what we're really talking about, what we're really getting at is find ways to connect with your reader and let them know that they're more than just the book sale.
And Penny, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, and this also extends media, because you've worked with some authors that have had some really brilliant, clever ways to be memorable with bloggers and media, haven't you? When they send out books, they send out more than just the book.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, we had an author, I remember this because this was over a summer in particular, and this author wrote a book that had recipes in, at the end of every chapter. The protagonist was a cookbook author, and one of the recipes was orgasmic cookies. And let me just say on the show that the recipe was amazing. And so she worked with a local bakery who agreed to make them just for the sticker advertisement on the cookies, right, to let them know who they were. And we sent the orgasmic cookies out with every single book. And let me tell you what, it was super, super memorable. In the case of more recently, in the case of Christina George, she had a book that she's an author that we work with pretty frequently. She had a book that was actually set in Belgium, and she included some Belgian chocolate with every single book for the reviewers. So there are ways to be memorable, just to add that little personal touch. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah. That's so brilliant. And if you're pitching bloggers and pitching media, and I mean, I think that makes you not only sound like you have everything together, but it shows that you've thought about the next level of your brand, and it shows how committed you are to what you're doing. And bloggers and media, they want a sure thing. So if you can show them that level of commitment that you have to your own brand, you are going to seem like somebody that is a sure thing and somebody that they can feel confident in giving coverage to. It says a lot.
Yeah, it really, really does. This even comes down to, I know we're getting a little sidetracked, how unique of us, right? Because we never get sidetracked of our conversations. But, this also comes down to personalizing emails. So we get, there's a particular email account that's connected to the website that Amy and I both get. And we both get emails from this account, and we get pitched for blog to write on our blog as a blog contributor a lot. And a lot of times the emails will start out with "dear" and then a comma.
I hate that so much.
I know, right? So you're trying to get real estate on my website, on our website, and you're not even addressing either of us. Like, even if it said "Dear Cosmo," which is my dog's name, those of you who don't know, or "Dear Bernie," which is Amy's dog's name, like, even if it was one of our
also allowed,
right? I would, I mean, you've got to.
It's so true. Or dear sirs, it's like, have you been on our website?
Right. Right. I mean, we're an all-female team. It's like, "Dear sirs," it's like, wow, thanks for doing your research. And you know what? The first thing I do when I see an email like that is I hit the delete button.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So really, I mean, I think the moral of the story of this podcast is create it, and it doesn't have to cost you a lot of money either, right? So what we're talking about here is creativity, a little bit of time, and maybe a little bit of money, but like Clara Cook and her e-cards that she has, once you create them, you don't have to do it again and again and again.
Right. Exactly. A lot of this stuff can be used over and over again. And getting personal and thinking about details and incorporating things that are unique to your brand is a lot better use of your marketing time. Doing a billion different things one time and then saying like, oh, now I can take a break for a couple months. It's like, no, that's not the approach you want to take. Doing a bunch of different stuff and not really paying attention to it and just hoping it works, that's not a good use of your time. But stopping to think about special details, making yourself memorable, those things will carry you longer for the effort that you put in.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I want to leave you all with this story, because I think that what we're really talking about is we're talking about not just creating a great book, but creating an experience for your reader, and to take it a step beyond that, create things that a reader is going to want to share. One of the reasons that we like sharing funny memes is because we like to look good in social media, right? I mean, nobody really posts anything bad. And so it's like, I guess some people do. And that's not really a good use of social media, but that's a whole different call. But part of the reason why these things get so sticky, why readers love them, is because they're fun to share with their friends. Like, oh, look at what I found. And then your friend says, oh my gosh, this is fabulous. Like all these finds that Amy has found. I'm like, oh my gosh, these links, how did I not know about this? Create shareable content. Years ago, and this goes back a while, but years ago, there was actually a PowerPoint presentation that had been somehow turned into this little movie, and it was called Interview with God. And it was created by somebody just kind of on the fly. He found this in public domain, the Interview with God, and he created all these images behind it and all this other stuff. And I met this author. He turned into an author because one day he was sitting at his computer and a friend forwarded him over this little PowerPoint mini movie and said, "Oh my gosh, Morgan, you have got to see this. This is the best thing you've ever seen." And it was his own movie that he had created. And somehow he had sent it to one friend who sent it on to more friends. By the time I met with him, he was local here in San Diego. He had a fax machine. Yes, I realize I have totally dated myself, but he had a fax machine in his office that literally rang the entire time with book orders. So in his case, a little bit in reverse, he had created this PowerPoint just on a whim because he thought it was a beautiful poem and added some photography to it. And then he decided after he got his presentation sent to himself by other friends like 10 or 20 times, he's like, oh, well, there's something here. He created a book and he couldn't fulfill the orders fast enough.
I love that.
He created there was a screensaver and there was a diary and there was all kinds of a calendar. There was all kinds of stuff. Creating memorable experiences for readers will help you in ways that you can't even imagine. So in the fourth session, we're going to close out kind of our 1 to 10,000 readers call. But I hope you've learned a ton. Thank you so much for sticking with us in this still yet unnamed show. Although I think, given the fact that we mentioned our dogs' names on the show, maybe we should name it after. Because we're crazy like that.
There might be a dedication line. Let's put it that way.
Right, exactly. There might be a dedication line. But we thank you all so much for tuning in. Amy, thank you for your great examples, too. These were really fabulous.
Of course.
And we will see you next time. Bye-bye.